Hey everyone, Liam from Solitude here. Thanks for clicking on this video to tune into what I have to say about WA music this time around. And in this one, I'm going to go through what I think, or who I think, are some great potential breakout artists that you can keep your eyes and ears out for in the WA music scene. Now, I wanted to do this for a couple of reasons. The main reason, obviously, is because I love WA music. I love kind of keeping my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the WA music scene, and I also really like kind of predicting what's going to happen in the future when it comes to music and who's going to break out, obviously all over Australia and specifically here in WA. So we've seen previously in the last couple of years, obviously Spacey Jane being the major breakout artist coming out of WA, now to be pretty much one of the biggest, if not the biggest, current indie rock band walking around in Australia right now. And I guess they're kind of trying to start to make some waves overseas as well. So we'll see what they can do with that. But pretty much over the last, I would say, 20 years, we've consistently seen a West Australian artist or band really break through and become quite a big person or band in the Australian music scene, or even internationally. I mean, just in the last 10 years, obviously we can think of artists like San Cisco, Tame Impala, and a few years back we got our Eskimo Joes as well, artists like that. But I kind of feel like every, maybe I'd say 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 5 years, we see another West Australian artist breaking out and becoming big all over Australia and possibly internationally. So I wanted to make this video about who I think that could potentially be next. And the first thing I wanted to go over, though, was I just kind of wanted to take a look back at the first ever video that I created for this channel, which was in near the end of 2020. I made a video where I was speaking about 10 artists that I believe could be like the next big thing in the West Australian music scene and possibly in the rest of Australia. So the video, I would say overall, was pretty well received. Obviously, people were like, "Where's this band? What about that band?" And some people wanted to point out the fact that I was also mentioning that a lot of the bands that I put on that list were bands who were getting played on Triple J, or maybe they felt like it was coming across like I was saying that if you get played on Triple J, you would have success or find some success, which, to a degree is true, which I reiterated in some of my comments that I had back and forth with people, but that's not necessarily the only way of finding success, which is, the obvious place that goes in that conversation. But it is a big point of success finding for Australian artists in indie and alternative genres of music. So, and also when I made this video, a lot of the artists in the top 10 that I put in that video have developed in the kind of 18 months to 2 years since then. So I just kind of want to go over where they're all at, and then after that I'll show you who I think are possibly 5 of the next biggest possible breakout artists from the WA music scene. So let's firstly go over the 10 that I went through a couple of years ago now and see where they're at. So my number 10, obviously 10 being the least likely and 1 being the most likely to break out in this list. Number 10, I had Mosquito Coast. Now, they've pretty much been quiet, if not silent, since I made that video. Since they've won the Triple J Unearthed High competition back a few years ago, their star really just has not risen as much as other people who've won that award for whatever reason. Maybe that's an output thing. Maybe they're just not putting enough out. Maybe, I don't know, their music is just not resonating with people as much now for whatever reason. But, still remains to be seen. They could bring out more music later that becomes more popular. We'll wait and see. But yeah, pretty quiet from Mosquito Coast. Next up, Verge Collection. Once again, pretty quiet. We haven't seen a whole lot from them. I think they've brought out maybe 1 new song since that previous video that I made, I put out. So there's not a whole lot of stuff we could talk about with them either. But to be honest, they were probably one that I thought maybe had already reached their peak, especially when their song Our Place came out and was getting played a lot on Triple J back in, I would say maybe that was 2015 off the top of my head. But yeah, I really don't know if we're going to see them grow any more than what they already got to back in 2015. Boat Show I had on there also. Now, when I made this video, there seemed to be some confusion as to what Boat Show were doing, where they were. I think they went over to Melbourne, might have come back, or at least Ali, who is the lead singer of Boat Show and seems to be the person who sticks around. It's kind of one of her projects, I guess you would say. People were a little bit unsure as to where she was at, what she was doing with her musical career. They were silent for a while, brought out one new song last year. But yeah, I don't know how much attention it got on Triple J, to be honest. Don't know how much attention it got in Australia. We haven't really heard a whole lot from them either. So yeah, another one that has gone a bit quiet. And I probably don't think we'll be seeing them break out any further than what they already got to. Okay, next one on my list is Dulcie. Now, this one is interesting because I would probably say since the beginning of this year, we haven't really heard a lot from them. Actually, no, that's not necessarily true. They have consistently been putting out songs here and there and an EP in there. It wasn't really getting as much as attention as I thought it would have, not until the beginning of this year at least. So the two songs that they've brought out in the last, I would say, 4 to 5 months seem to be getting played on Triple J quite a lot. They seem to be getting quite a lot of attention from other bands, inviting them to play shows. I think they played with Ocean Alley on some of their shows, so we might be starting to see some growth for them around about now. So, I mean, in 6 months' time, Dulcie could really be the breakout artist that comes out of WA. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens with them. But yeah, definitely keep your eyes and ears out to see what happens with Dulcie moving forward. I think they're a great band. They're doing something really cool, something really unique. They're an all-girl group. They kind of sound like Haim. Yeah, just check them out if you haven't already. They're really impressive vocalists, great musicians. Check out Dulcie. Okay, next up we've got Sly Withers. So, yeah, I mean, what can you say about them other than the fact that they've really cemented themselves solidly in the Australian music scene since I made that video, and it's pretty much what I saw happening. I'd have to say, they really kind of have etched themselves into that spot. I think that's kind of been left by the Smith Street Band because they're a similar sort of genre, and Smithies seem to be kind of handing the torch, if I might say, to them. Not necessarily willingly, but it just seems to be naturally happening that way, where Sly Withers seem to be the band that those who like this sort of emo punk Australiana music are gravitating towards more now, as opposed to Smith Street Band. But yeah, I mean, props to them. I think their album that they brought out, which hit number 10 on the ARIA charts, and in particular their song Clarkson from that album, which placed in one of the hottest 100s recently. I think it was great music, the album, and in particular that song. I really resonated with it personally, and I could see them growing a little bit more in popularity over the coming years. And yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with them. Maybe another big song comes out and they place a little higher in the hottest 100 or something like that, or maybe they play more live shows with venues opening back up and Australia opening back up post-COVID. We see them just kind of rising in their status in the Australian music scene. We'll wait and see with that one, but yeah, good prediction. Okay, next up I had Death by Denim. So I think they've been solid without being too big over the last couple of years. So they've brought out 2 albums now, one that very recently came out, still getting consistent airplay on Triple J, still pretty well received locally here in Perth. The albums were both well received. Not a whole lot of commercial success, if you can call it that, commercial success, as opposed to someone like Sly Withers. I don't really see them connecting with a subgroup of fans a whole lot. I think Sly Withers are a bit more like kind of etched into a subculture with their sort of music in the Australian music sphere, whereas Death by Denim are kind of just floating on the edges a little bit. But we'll see. Again, they could grow a little bit more, but I also think they could be pretty much at their peak. I'm not too sure with them. Okay, next up, Great Gable. Now, I would have to say that probably after Sly Withers, this is the band that I can see maybe getting a little bit bigger than what they are. And they're bringing out a new album. I think as I speak, it's coming out really soon. And their other album, which came out, which was produced by Matt Corby, was received really well. They had one of their songs that made the hottest 200 in the Triple J. Not quite as high as they would have liked, but pretty respectable. I think they're doing pretty well. I think they probably do something a little bit better that I was just mentioning that Death by Denim don't, in that they probably speak towards a stronger sub-genre or stronger subculture of the Australian music sphere, like that kind of surfy guy, reggae rock sort of genre of music that people really kind of gravitate towards a lot here in Australia. So I think they're doing that really well. I reckon we could see them rise up. I could see them getting a song, hit the hottest 100, and yeah, possibly rise a little stronger for them. Next up, I had Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. Now, I would have to say, as far as like Australian audience goes, when I made this video, they were already pretty strong. But I don't think they've got much stronger since then. But internationally, as far as I'm aware, it looks like they might be getting a little stronger. So it's very, very, very exciting for them. And yeah, I can see why, because they're an awesome band. I mean, as far as psychedelic rock goes, they do amazing music. I think they're a really good kind of replacement for people who like the more psychedelic rock side of Tame Impala, who are not so fussed about their more kind of indie poppier direction they've been taking, and their more disco inspired direction from their last two albums. So yeah, the Porn Crumpets are definitely kind of filling that void for a lot of music fans here in Australia. One of their albums that came out recently reached number 4 on the ARIA charts. And also, they've been getting a little bit of attention from Anthony Fantano on his channel, The Needle Drop. He is probably the biggest music critic in the world, if you ask me, just my opinion. But yeah, I think he's got a huge audience, millions and millions of subscribers and followers on his social medias, in particular his YouTube channel, The Needle Drop. And they didn't get a review specifically, but I think they popped up on a Why You Know review segment, which is where he goes over some of the albums that came out over the month that he didn't get around to making a full review for. So pretty good. I mean, yeah, I would not turn my nose up to be being placed on a Why You Know review segment of The Needle Drop. So yeah, props to them. I could see them rising a little bit more internationally, but in Australia, I think they're pretty much where they're at, unfortunately. But yeah, we never know. Could rise a little more. Okay, next up I had The Fame. Now, this is a funny one because they have still been putting out singles. I haven't seen as much noticeably growing fandom around them as I thought I would have done over the last couple of years. But I think the main issue with this is because of COVID. I think they had a lot of big potential shows that they were going to be playing overseas and possibly in Australia that were cancelled because of COVID reasons. And yeah, I just think that, yeah, that's probably the big thing that held them back. I think that they're doing really well with streaming, but if they really want to get more of a noticeable audience in Australia, I think they need to definitely up their live show game. And that's not to say that they won't. I think they definitely will. But yeah, with COVID going, hopefully we can see them get a little bit stronger. I don't see them ever really getting played on Triple J, in my opinion. I just don't think they're that sort of sound. They have too much sheen on their sound, I think. I think a little bit too much like kind of Imagine Dragons sort of sounding for Triple J to ever consider playing them. And I don't think they need to worry about that. I don't think they will ever need Triple J attention because they're doing so well on their own through streaming services. And then lastly, obviously, was Spacey Jane. So when I made the video, it was just before, it was about 2 or 3 months before the Hottest 100 where Booster Seat came in at number 2. And I mean, I could definitely see it. Many of us could see it coming, where this wave of attention was being given to them and this wave of love was being given to them as well. I remember having some discussions on the Triple J Reddit page with some people probably around, I'm going to say like September or October, or maybe August, saying, before this Hottest 100, that was, saying that I thought that Booster Seat could actually win the Hottest 100 of that year. And at the time, people were like, no. People were saying flat out, no, that's not going to happen. But I just saw like so many people talking about this song online, and everyone giving it so much love. I was like, is this song like going to win? Like, it's got a lot of love. But yeah, for whatever reason, people did not think that would happen. But it did really strongly rise up the ranks. And I think that can definitely be put down to their buzz that they created on their shitposting page, called Thrills Posting. And I speak about that in one of the other videos I created, which is what I wanted to lead into now, the Spacey Jane Blueprint video that I made. And if you haven't seen this video already, I would strongly encourage you to watch it if you're interested in the story of Spacey Jane and the rise that they went through recently. And also in this video, I kind of go through what I will be explaining now about the other bands I think who could break out and how they can do it. Because I think Spacey Jane definitely went through a process of becoming who they are now. And to me, some of these steps that they took were really pivotal in why they became such a successful band. And I think it's a blueprint that other bands can follow if they want to. Like, they can go out in a way to really kind of do this, or they could just do it unknowingly. And I think that's probably more common. I think some of the bands that I'm going to be talking about are kind of already doing this Spacey Jane Blueprint in their own way without really being told that's what they're doing. And that's awesome, because everyone should find their own way of finding success if that's what they ultimately want to get one day. Or, if they just want to make great music, and they want to share that with people and people love it and they happen to get famous or happen to have success, then props to them too. So anyway, let's move on to who I think are 5 more artists since this video that I made that could possibly be the next Spacey Jane. Now, I think it's a bit of a clickbaity title, I know, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, a WA band who could possibly break out to be a big one all over Australia. So, all right, firstly, I want to get into a couple of smaller bands who I think could jump up the ranks. Now, my number 5, this being least likely, number 1 being most likely. So, number 5, I'm going to go with South Summit. So, this is a young band. They've only just kind of popped up around the Perth music scene, but I've noticed them getting a little bit of attention on Triple J Unearthed. So, that's why I think they're a bit of a shot. I should also mention, actually, just going back to my Spacey Jane Blueprint, the steps in there. And that's why I have South Summit in here. So in the Blueprint video that I go through, I explain that Spacey Jane found this way of having success by firstly building an audience at home, then eventually getting so big that they essentially forced their way onto Triple J's playlist, so they could not be ignored. So that's what I think we need to look out for, those sorts of bands. But this band, South Summit, I think they might be just possibly a sort of band who could skip that building an audience part. So they have a sound that a lot of Triple J fans love. It's kind of like that reggae rock, similar to Great Gable or similar Sticky Fingers. It could really translate well in that sort of genre and that subculture of fans. They're young. By the look of it, I think they're only like early 20s when I look at them. So I feel like they've got a lot of growth. So keep your eyes out for them. The next one I'd say is Spicy Water. Now, this band, there's a couple of reasons why I think they could break out. A little bit of attention on Unearthed, like South Summit. And then they also sound similar to another sort of sound that is already pretty popular in Triple J right now, with that kind of indie garage rock, with bands like Skeggs and Hockey Dad being really popular. They even sound a little bit like Spacey Jane. But one thing specifically about them that I think could really translate well with Triple J and the Triple J audience and fans around Australia is they have a female vocalist, something which sets them apart, something which just makes them slightly different. I think she's a great vocalist. She's got a really kind of catchy voice, and yeah, it's identifiable. So yeah, I think Spicy Water are definitely one to look out for. Okay, my number 3 is a duo called Those Who Dream. Now, this one is slightly different, and this one is more towards the Spacey Jane Blueprint, because they're finding their own way to build this audience, and I really love what they're doing. So, okay, for starters, their music is kind of like this, what I would call like neo pop punk, kind of like Machine Gun Kelly sort of sounding pop punk. Like all these Travis Barker inspired pop punk artists now that are popping up and going pretty big on TikTok. Triple J has been pretty open to playing that sort of stuff. So Those Who Dream are doing that. And they're also doing that on TikTok. So they're building a bit of an audience on the platform that so many young people listen to now. It's hard to ignore what they're doing. They don't get a lot of attention from Triple J on Unearthed, as far as I know. I haven't seen those two brands connected with this band at all. But it could just get to the point where, like Spacey Jane, they just cannot be ignored. Like they could get so big, something could blow up on TikTok. I think they're really on the cusp of that. And if they consistently put out good singles, we could very well be seeing a band here from Perth becoming like one of the next big pop punk bands in Australia. But we'll have to wait and see with them, though. I think it's really on the cusp of happening, but also just could not happen. And that might be because this pop punk, sort of neo pop punk wave might be a flash in the pan. That's the only reason why I think it could phase out. So wait and see with them. Okay, my number 2 is this band called Ghost Care. Now, this one I think is a really solid band to look out for a few reasons. Okay, first reason is they are just an awesome band. They write amazing music. It just sounds great. It's really well written. The vocals are incredible. I just can't deny that it's great music. They put out an EP last year, and the lead single off that EP, called Kevin Garnett, named after the basketballer, obviously, was one of my favorite songs to come out all around the world last year. Not just here in Perth, but like favorite songs, period. I think the rest of the EP was great. They've also brought out a new song this year called Bustle Highway, which you should check out, which is another good follow-up. And yeah, they seem to be growing a bit of an audience here in Perth with that sort of indie pop, indie rock, alternative rock sound. I'd say they're comparable to like ballpark music, and even a little similar to Spacey Jane in a way. Now, the other thing going for them is that they seem to have a little bit of a connection with Triple J or Triple J connected artists. So they, if I recall, did do a little bit of a tour with Spacey Jane. They supported them, I think. And Triple J also made an article about this band. I can't remember if it was on their Unearthed or Triple J page, but they know them. They've been noticed. So I think we could really see them gaining more popularity with more of a presence on Triple J. And as annoying that can be for other artists that don't get played in Triple J, because there's so many great ones here in WA that don't. That's just how it is. Like, the bands that get the attention on there get a bigger audience. That's just how it is. And I speak about this in some of my other videos about Triple J. If you are interested, I'll have links to them, so you can check that out too. Okay, so now my number one, and Ghost Care. Let me tell you, a very solid guess as to a possible breakout band. So if there's a band out there that tops Ghost Care, they have to be doing something really good. And I think there is a band, okay? And if you're, big into WA music and you're big into the WA music scene, I honestly would not be surprised if you haven't heard of this band. That's how, discreet they are about what they're doing in WA, but how big they're becoming everywhere else, it's hard to not notice, okay? So this band is called Coterie. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right. I made another video a couple of years ago about some bands from WA, and I was saying Coterie then. I'm not sure if it's Coterie. Anyway, I think it's Coterie. They are a band who kind of sound like, I would say, Matt Corby, a little bit like Gang of Youths, and even a little bit of like kind of reggae rock Sticky Fingers tinged in there too. They have that kind of soul, worship rock sort of sound, and they are awesome musicians. They have great vocals, great lyrics, and what they are doing is really, really smart, okay? So these guys, they all come from a New Zealand background, but they live here in Perth. As many of us would know, there is a lot of Kiwis who live here in Perth for various reasons: family, jobs, weather, heaps of Kiwis. My mum's a Kiwi. She moved over here with her family when she was a kid. There's so many Kiwis here in Perth. But anyway, they have done this really smart thing where they've really tapped into the Kiwi culture here in Perth. So, and I have a lot of friends from New Zealand, and I know the sort of stuff that they like, and they like this sort of music. A lot of Kiwis, especially like native Kiwis, Māoris, they really like reggae rock, they really like soul, they really connect with that sort of music. And this band is basically making music for the local Kiwis who live here in WA. Now, their social media following is massive, okay? They've got like tens of thousands of followers on social media. They have at least 4 or 5 songs which have more than 1 million streams on Spotify. And one of their songs recently charted in New Zealand. Isn't that crazy? And to top it off, right now, they are touring with probably the biggest band in New Zealand currently. No, it's not Flight of the Conchords. I know what you're thinking. It is this band called 660. Now, you may not have heard of them, but I would say they sound a little similar to like Sticky Fingers or Ocean Alley. But they are a really big band in New Zealand. Like a massive band. I'd say they're like, maybe like the equivalent of Spacey Jane, maybe bigger, But so this tour that 660 are doing right now in New Zealand and Australia, Coterie are their main support act. They're going to get huge after this, in my opinion, okay? They've already built this huge audience on their own without any Triple J attention. They've cracked into a subculture group who love them here in Perth. They sell out shows here in Perth, okay? They sell out places like the Rosemount Hotel with all like Kiwi expats who go and see them. And they actually played live at a Western Force game. Once again, lots of Kiwi expats go there to the rugby games. So they're really building their presence here in Australia and in Perth. But yeah, they're not really building it traditionally. They're not grinding their teeth away in these little venues, hoping that people notice them every Friday or Saturday night. They're super smart because they notice that, like, there's this subculture that's so big here in Perth. Let's just cater to them. And I really think that what they're doing is super clever. And props to them for doing it. So the last thing that they need, though, and I can definitely see this happening, is they just need to get played on Triple J. Okay, so they have been played a couple of times on Triple J, and I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be played on Triple J. Like I said, their music is inspired by artists who have been really big on that station in the past 10 years. Especially their latest song, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it really kind of does dabble into that sort of reggae rock feel with a bit of soul, which is big on that station. It's big on Triple J. So apparently they've been played a couple of times, but in my opinion, they really do deserve a lot of attention, and they deserve more airplay. And what I could see happening with them is something similar that what happened to Ocean Alley, something similar that happened to Lime Cordiale, and something similar that happened to Spacey Jane ultimately, which is they got this big audience on their own, and then eventually the audience got so big that they forced their way onto a Hottest 100. This is what happened for these three bands that I previously mentioned. So they all made a Hottest 100 without getting a whole lot of Triple J airplay, just maybe a little bit. But once you force your way onto a Hottest 100 without a whole lot of airplay, they can't help but put you on heavy rotation after that. That's what happened for Spacey Jane, Ocean Alley, and Lime Cordiale. They all went through that. None of them were getting a whole lot of airplay on the station, pop up in the Hottest 100, because so many people love them, so many people voted for them. Boom. They get played. And then they go massive. I could really see this happening with Coterie. Like, really see it happening. Okay? So keep your eyes out for them. And if you haven't listened to them before, listen to them. They make great music, okay? It's awesome sounding. It really caters towards people who like that reggae rock sort of stuff. And if you're into that, chuck them on your Spotify playlists. Go see them live. They've got some really cool merch too. Playing the merch game really well. So yeah, check them out. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening to this video. If you want to see more stuff or hear more stuff about WA music or Australian music, please subscribe to this channel. And hey, I'd love some feedback too. Let me know what you think about other WA bands that could break out, or if you just want to give me feedback in general about my channel. I'm happy for any sort. Constructive criticism is fine, and compliments are nice too. Thanks for watching, everyone. See ya.